Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Larry Roller.
So I just left. I shipped out of there. I loaded up right after the last race, and I shipped to Freehold. And but during back up a little bit during that meet, we became after about 2 or 3 weeks, we were making a lot of money, and he realized that he could trust me, and we were doing well. And one day he's leaving the barn, and he says to me, he says, "Listen," he said. You want? I got a big edge on this hoop game tonight. I didn't even know what hoops were. I had no idea. I didn't gamble. I did. All I wanted to do was listen to music, go out with girls, and race. That's all I wanted to do. But we were making a lot of money, and I was following his lead, and he says he had an edge. So if you have an edge, I says, do whatever you do for you, do for me. So he come back the next morning, and he handed me, I think it was 3 or 4 thousand. I don't remember what it was. And he said, "Here," he says, "I get a big edge with these college basketball." I think that's what he said. I didn't care. I didn't care. If you have an edge, just put me in. Do whatever you do for you, for me. So the windup was I started making a lot of money because, and then after about the second or third time, I started asking him. I says, "You have anything else, on your end?" And I start getting involved in betting sports, and it was easier for me because he was the one fixing whatever he was doing. I guess he was fixing the games or something. But every bet he made for me, we win, and it was like a daily thing. And so at the end of the week, I may get 10, 12,000 just from what he was betting for me. Yeah. And it was easy for me because I didn't have to run around the barn area looking for drivers. Would you do this, do this, do this, and setting up races. This was easy. The bottom line was I got addicted. I got addicted to sports betting, and then naturally from there it went to football, and that was even worse. And then you wind up betting hockey and basketball, and it just got crazy. And that was my downfall. That was as we go on, you'll see how that addiction affected my life, almost ended my life, and cost me millions and millions of dollars, and dealing with scary people, just to stay alive, and it was my own doing. So it wasn't like I was turning myself into a little puppy dog and listening to all these mob guys. I put myself there, and my whole life I did what I wanted to do, but sometimes I did what I wanted to do that weren't the right thing, and I paid the price, and I always paid the price, whether it was beatings or jail or whatever it was. I always paid the price. So I got involved. I was making a lot of money racing horses and losing the same amount of money betting sports, and sometimes even more. Now, just so you know, because I don't see, if I skip years ahead, you don't know the whole story. But if I go through the whole story, we'll be here till December. So I just want you to know that there's a TV series being written about my life, and Nicholas Pileggi and Richard Price, and now Barry O'Brien, that writes for Law and Order. They're writing a TV series, because when we sat down, originally it was going to be a movie, but when we sat down and they start talking to me like we're talking now, and we had many meetings, they said there's just too much for a movie. because we already had a screenplay written. The screenplay was 150 pages, which is like a 3-hour movie, and we had almost 400 voiceovers in the movie. So
That's a lot. That's
yeah,
a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, Casino had 350 voiceovers, because a voiceover, it eliminates like 40 pages of dialogue just by just a voiceover, and then just
It can explain a lot of things in one.
Yeah. So that's why it's so hard for me because I could jump right to Monticello, where the heavyweight stuff first happened, but then you don't get the you could always say, well, how'd you get to that point, but I'll skip along and try to fill it in a little bit. So what happened was, when I shipped out of Lincoln Downs, naturally about a month before the stall applications, you apply for stalls at certain racetracks. Stall applications came out for Freehold, so I applied for stalls at Freehold, which was a lot closer to home and a lot higher purse money. I wasn't sure if I would get the stalls because I was barred from all New York tracks. They already knew of my reputation, not my reputation. They knew that I was accused of stiffing a horse, which was really not the truth. I really didn't do that, and that was something that was building up inside of me for the last 3-4 years, because all the suffering and bullshit that I went through for something I didn't do. For a guy like me, I don't know the average guy. I don't even know if I have no idea, but I only know about me. I have a terrible problem with turning the other cheek, especially if I'm right. It's bad enough to take your lumps when you're wrong. That's tough, and I did that. But when you're right, that's tough, and that was building up inside of me. But so was my gambling addiction. So when I left Lincoln Downs, I was pretty well addicted, because now he got me betting into all of the sports and baseball, and so now I get to Freehold, and I contact a couple of friends of mine saying, I'll be at Freehold. I'm racing tomorrow at Freehold. Some of my old neighborhood guys. And that's the closest I've been to home. So I called them up, and naturally they say, you got 2 horses in, can they win? So they're my friends. And I said, yeah, just, and so one of my friends says to me, you sure he could win? Because I'm broke. I have no money. And I just told him, I says, listen, go borrow, do whatever you have to do to get money. I'm telling you, this horse will win. So after the race, I won. And I go out into the grandstand, and I meet him, and he introduces me to this guy, Cabert. That's his nickname, Robert Cabert. I didn't know who he was, but he introduces me, and he says, this is the guy who lent me the money to make the bet. He borrowed, I think, $1,000. He bet, and he won, and he paid the guy back. So he introduces me to this guy, and this guy, we start talking through the course of, because we went and got something to eat. And it turns out that he's a mob guy from New Jersey. And he said, listen, if you ever have any action, he's let me know. If you ever need anything, let me know. And all of that kind of stuff.
What kind of vibes are you getting from this guy? Are you getting like?
I really didn't pay that much attention, because at the time I had some money. I left Lincoln Downs with some money. I really didn't pay that much attention. And as far as the mob guys, I grew up with that shit. I grew up with them my whole life. From the time I was 14, 15. You rob cars, you go into different neighborhoods, you wind up meeting everybody, you're robbing, just robbing gas stations and doing all kinds of stupid things. And you wind up meeting everybody. And by the time I was probably 17, 18, I knew everybody in Corona. I knew everybody like Tough Tony, the guy from Corona, owns Parkside Restaurant. I mean, we were kids together, and now years later he becomes like a big boss. So, but I grew up with that. I grew
Tony, he just passed away, right?
Yeah, he's a really good guy. He was a really good guy, but heads above all the other kids up in Corona. They had gangs up in Corona, the Corona Dukes. And I used to go up there and fight with them and with all the gangs and everything. And that's how I changed my life, because after going out every single night, all they wanted to do, we're 15, 16, 17 years old, and we're going out fighting. And one night I was sitting in the diner with all the guys from Corona, and we were full of blood and everything. And this was a nightly affair. And, my nose was broke, my head was cracked open, my clothes full of blood. Then I go home at night. My mother beats the shit out of me. What are you're being a bad guy again? You want to be a gangster and all that stuff. But I didn't enjoy it, and I was not interested in following the leader, like whoever, there was a guy everybody looked up to. Maybe he was a year older or something. Yeah, whatever he wanted to do, let's go to Gildays tonight, beat up all them Irish guys. Who the fuck wants to do, but I did it, but after a while I said, this is not me. And I broke away from that. But I spent enough years in there, and I grew up around all them, just like every other Italian neighborhood. There's old mob guys on the corner with the pinky rings and new cars and the girls and everything else. And in the beginning, you get attracted to that. But I just couldn't handle taking orders from somebody or following the leader. I don't want to go to Gildays. I want to go to the Tune Timers and listen to music. I don't want to go there and open the door. And it was an Irish bar on Queens Boulevard, I think, and they got a kick out of opening a door and saying, "Oh, you Irish guys suck," or something like that. And then they come out and we're standing out there with bats, and I mean, it's so stupid. And I didn't like that. I want to go listen to music. I love music. The loves of my life are racing, music, and girls. That's it. And girls are third. So I wasn't that interested in that, and I broke away from that. But now we get back to the racetrack. So now I meet this Cabert guy. And naturally, he says, I listened a little when he said anything you need, because now I'm in a different area. I'm not with Tony Shula, so I need bookmakers. I need somebody to take this action, and I need somebody that's friendly. So I mean, I don't want to. Every time I want to make a bet, I got to meet him. I want somebody that's going to give me at least a little credit. And this guy seemed like the best guy. So I took his number, I kept his number. And as we went on, I started to, in fact, about 6 months later, a friend of mine comes up to me and says, "Well, what the fuck are you doing with him?" And I says, "Well, he takes my action." He says, "This guy's a madman. He kills 17 guys. He burns houses. He burns people's feet off with blowtorch. He's nuts." I said, "Well, well, whatever. I mean, I bet, I pay, and
How long have you been dealing with him at this point?
Well, at that point, at the point where my friend told me, I was dealing with him for about 3 or 4 months, but by then the freehold meet ended, and I did pretty well at freehold. I have, in fact, I think in my book or on my podcast or one of the places, I have a bunch of winner's circle pictures that I found, because I never collected that stuff. I was not interested. I just liked the action. The trophies didn't mean nothing to me. None of that stuff meant nothing. The only time I'm in a winner's circle is if I drove the horse. Half the time with the thoroughbreds, when I won a race, I didn't even go to the winner's circle. I'm not one of them guys that with the pictures, and I have more pictures taken of me in the last 2 years than I did my whole life. But anyway, freehold meet ended, and I went up to Monticello. When I got up to Monticello, I was really happy because it was the first. It was a New York track, which was it was good that I got there because it was the first New York track that accepted me after Tannenbaum threw me out of Yonkers. But it was a small upstate track. It was up in Monticello, New York. But I got very friendly with the owner of the racetrack, Charles Slusky, because he had a waitress up there. That her name was Monica, and they were really good friends. But Monica, we started to hit it off pretty good, and Monica liked me, so I started going to after the races. I'd go to the Concord Hotel in the lounge, listen to music and everything else. And who would show up? Monica. And who would be with Monica? Charles, who owned the racetrack and the Nevele Hotel. And we through the months we become very, very, very close. And I can't get into how it happened because, like I said, you don't have enough time. But after about me being up there about 6-7 months, we become very close, and I convinced Charles to ask the racing commission guys, because they all stayed at his hotel, to ask for the racing dates for the weeks that they close during Christmas and New Year's. I said, because every racetrack in the country is closed at that point. If you can get them racing dates to stay open, your handle will increase tremendously. Plus, their schedule open OTB parlors, off-track betting parlors, in November. So everything's going to happen at the right time for you. In the meantime, I was thinking of me because I started fixing races up there too. But the handle was so small that you can't make major scores. You can't make 20, 30,000 on a bet. You could make maybe a couple of thousand. But if the handle got bigger, so that's what my thing was. So sure enough, he got the racing dates, and the OTB did open, and I started everything that I had in a small way at Lincoln Downs and the Freehold, I had it at Monticello. Because, like I said, all them guys at smaller racetracks, they're all broke. They're racing for $800 purses, and if you offer them $500 with a horse that couldn't win anyway, naturally they're going to be back. And then you're left with 3-4 horses. You box them in exactas or superfectas, and you can make big scores. So the bigger the pool is, the bigger the mutual pool is, the more money you could win.